Heavenly sounds, heavenly movements, heavenly crowns. By leaps and bounds, we're taking the mounts, we're doing it all for you. We're living our lives for you. Come do what you will do. Yeah, let your fire fall.
Welcome to the throne room. We're so glad that you're joining us today. We are going to have a special time. We have Pastor Nadine with us, and we just went through a great convo, great series of spiritual mothers and fathers and sons and daughters. It was deep, it was good. If you haven't watched it, make sure you go and watch it and then come and watch this. So for this video, we're pretty much just going to share a few stories of what our relationship has been like. With some things in the beginning, some things now, of what we've gone through through our journey as a spiritual parent and as a spiritual daughter. It's been trying at times, it's been great at times, it's been humbling at times, it's been really funny at times.
Lots of times.
Yeah, I'm a character,
Yes,
so Pastor Nadine has to bear with me.
I love it.
I know I'm a problem, but my life is yours, Jesus. So we're gonna jump right in.
Okay.
Let's go into some stories. Now, first of all, just in case, if you don't go back to it and you stay here, if you haven't grabbed Pastor Nadine's book, please do. But God, a memoir. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it at her website, NadineARaphael.com. Did I say Amazon already? I believe I did. And also follow her Instagram handles. That's at Nadine A. Raphael. And then you got Facebook and YouTube. So make sure you go follow, subscribe, comment below. All right. So, question for you. So in the beginning, when we first met, I used to show up at your house for life group. Life group is small groups. She had a young adults
Bible study.
Bible study group at her home, and I used to show up and such. I didn't even know you when I showed up at your house.
I didn't know. She was a stranger that just showed up at my house one day for Bible study. Someone told her where I lived. We had Bible study there, and she showed up.
What was it like with me coming in, because you've always been very discerning in the spirit. What was your first reading of me just walking into your home super late in the middle of a video and then just sat down?
I knew from looking at Ellaina, I remember opening the door that day, and she's like, I'm here. Her mother I can't remember the lady that told her about that it met at my house, the Bible study. You looked lost. So she came off very confident, but the confidence was more attitude, and the attitude was rooted in insecurity. So I was able to discern the insecurity, and it was an outward appearance, which linked from something that was happening on the inside. And so, which showed up now in her outward appearance. And then, she was smoking, at that time. So the aroma was there. I was, and I'm being honest, I was so glad that she came to my house. Because while our journey wasn't the exact same thing, I was once lost, and I did not have a woman opening her doors to me. So the fact that my house was chosen for Ellaina to come in and her brokenness and her darkness and where she was in life at that time, I counted it a privilege that she was showing up at my house, honest to God.
Wow.
And so I was even in that room. I remember we were sitting around. It was, at that time, a large groups used to meet at my house, and they were all young adults in their 20s. And they would all, they were all in the room. And I just remember that day, and the first couple times that Ellaina was coming, that I kept looking at her. I could see that she was uncomfortable in there, and she had to go. She had to go to wherever she was going. And I could see that she had all of that, and I wanted a way. How do I reach her? And Ellaina, you were guarded. She was guarded, and she had, she was cinder blocks were around her heart, and how close she allowed people in. And I wanted to respect her guard. I didn't want to intrude. I wanted her to welcome me in. So my heart for you was, okay, God, how do I help her to see that I'm safe?
It's big.
That I was safe, and I wasn't there to judge her, and I wasn't there to critique how she looked or what she smelled like. And so at that time, it was just very important for me. It wasn't about the words I was going to give her. It was more about help her to see that it's okay, that I've been there, you know, and she can open up to me, that she don't have to tell me anything, but that she can tear down her walls with me. And over time,
yeah, I really, the first day was rough. I was like, oh my God, these church folk. Around all these church folk. But it was a powerful meeting, because it was good to hear how, you know, after the word was given, the discussion and all of that, and I thought that was good. And there was one young lady, and I tell her this all the time. At the time she was Amanda Jordan, now she's Amanda Apollon, married, yes. And she started sharing in their time of discussion, and I don't even remember what she said. I don't remember what she said. I remember the glow that she had. She just had this thing as she was talking about God. I just remember looking at her and being like, I don't have that. What she got right now, I don't have that. And I'm older than her. That's a problem. I left that life group with that in my mind. It didn't change my life, but it was a seed planted. But I also didn't forget how I felt in the life group, because I smoked on the way there. So I knew I came in smelling like a pound of weed. I did, I know. But I did not feel judged. I didn't feel people staring at me or anything like that. It was a good place. So I was like, you know what, I'll go back. I'll go back.
And you were quiet. You didn't speak.
No, just listening.
But she came. She kept coming.
And the reason why I even ended up in your life group that day.
I want to know, because I don't even know how did she end up at the house.
So I came home. This is when I was working down Star Island. Yeah, this was the Star Island days. So I was doing well. I had a little bit of money. I really just spent it. That's all I did. So usually on a Friday night, come home, I would go and get some weed. I would go and get some drinks. I would go hang out with a few friends. And that's the beginning of the turn up for the weekend. And I couldn't get a hold of anyone. Yeah, I called a particular group, because they're the ones that we usually start off the weekend. I couldn't get any of them. I tried to reach the weed man. He wasn't available. And I was just like, so I guess I'm gonna be home. And I only had one spliff left. So I was like, oh, this sucks. So I'm going through my bag. I was looking through my bag to see if I had any other weed in there. That's what I was looking for. And I came across a sheet of paper that I had got from going to church and running into Safina, who I used to go to school with. And she was saying, you need to go to pastor. He wasn't pastor yet. But she needed to go to Nadine's house. They have a life group there. You love it. And I was like, yeah, no. But she gave me your information, and I just dropped it in my bag. So in going through my bag, I saw the sheet of paper, and it said 7 p.m. Fridays. And I was like, well, I'm not doing anything.
Wow.
That's just how it happened. I was like, I'm not doing anything. I can't get the weed man. I can't get my friends. It's almost time. So I was like, you know what? I'll get myself together and I'll go check it out. So I was so slow in getting ready, but that's because it wasn't a priority. So I was really trying to reach other people. Still couldn't reach anyone. Smoked my last spliff and went on over. That's how I ended up at your house that day.
Wow.
So it was really a divine appointment that just changed the trajectory of
one appointment.
One appointment
Kick-started a series of appointments, which changed the trajectory of your life.
That's huge. So huge.
It is.
So for you, because perspective is everything. When was the shift moment of me being at your life group where you were able to connect?
I remember that. It was the day you stayed to help me clean. Everyone left the life group that day. These are all appointments that we think it's nothing, but God is a chessboard, and God is moving the pieces. The pieces in accordance that support the path that he's leading our lives to, right? So it just so happened that day everyone left to go to a movie.
That's it. Yeah. To a movie.
To go to a movie, and Ellaina stayed behind and offered to help me clean, right? Because typically everyone would help me clean after the Bible study, but this particular day I told them to go. They had to catch a movie at a certain time, and Ellaina decided to stay back and help me clean
because I was not going to their movie. Their Jesus movie.
She didn't want to go to their God movie, but God was going to meet her in my kitchen. And that day, we were cleaning the countertop of my kitchen, and I just happened to say, "What's your story? You know, how did you get here? How did you end up? I hear your accent. How did you end up in the United States?" Because she told me she was from England, and she began to tell me her story. And I'm that person when I'm listening to people's story, I'm listening to messages behind what they're saying. It's never for me just a surface level thing that they're saying. I'm always listening to the backstory that they're not saying. And so I picked up from Ellaina fear. She was dealing with a lot of fear. And alone, some levels of abandonment. And so I heard it in her heart. And I just began to speak to that. That is when Ellaina, because at the time in the kitchen, Ellaina desired to be there. So there was something in you that wanted to be with me. And that was a form of her bringing down her walls. So that appointment, that right time with you bringing down some walls, and then the story that you started sharing with me, and I started embracing her where she was at. She started feeling a love. I started putting my heart around her heart. And I just remember she started crying and I started crying. And I think what you saw is that I cared. I loved her. I cared for her. She saw my affection towards her. And she just began to cry in my kitchen. And she cried and I cried. And that was the beginning of our bond.
Yeah. I remember the struggle that I was going through in the kitchen when you started asking questions.
Yeah, she was trying to guard how she answered the question.
Because
you had secrets. There were secrets.
Oh, I had a whole lot of secrets. But even in the mind, there was a conversation happening. Like, I ain't telling this lady my business. You can't trust anyone.
Yeah.
And then there was a voice. Now, I know now this was the Spirit of God speaking. At the time, I had no clue. But there was this voice that was just like, it's okay. It's okay to share. And I just did from that point. I was just, blah. That's my life. And the understanding, the no judgment, and then knowing that that's what I was in, the issues that I was in at the time, you know. It was a lot. Even just the way,
your place where you were living.
Yeah,
so many things.
Legal immigrant. Yes. Like there was a lot going on in those days.
And here's the thing that happened that night. When Ellaina, you see, because God will put it in your reach and not in your hands. There's something you have to do. So when we think about Jesus turning the water into wine, they first had to fill the buckets with water. So they had to cooperate with their own miracle. It wasn't that God was just going to give it to them. God was going to invite them into the miracle, but there's something that they had to do. So Ellaina had to take the step, number one, to stay behind and serve.
Yeah.
Right? Then the next step she had to do was to be vulnerable and begin to share out of her deep fears and out of her deep, she had reluctance based on past hurt, you know, stuff that she had been through. So she had to be vulnerable to open up. Then she had to be vulnerable to let the tears, because Ellaina was very tough. So to let even now, she's not a crier. You won't see Ellaina crying, you know, over things, or, you know, she's just a very tough person. So she had to let the tears go. But in that, the result was not only did Ellaina begin to find healing, because many times we find healing when we talk things out.
Yeah.
We got to have a place, a safe place to speak it out, to get it from in here and get it out of us. And so she had a safe place in that. Then she had a place of where she felt embraced, she felt comforted, felt cared for and accepted, not rejected. But then physical support came into Ellaina's life.
It sure did.
That she needed.
Yeah.
Had she not done those previous steps, she would not have stepped into the after effects, which was spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical resources that she needed in her life. And she wasn't even going to tell me. And once she told me, I said, it's done. But it was the key. Ellaina had to turn the lock.
Yeah.
You had a key that you weren't using. So that's why God says you get not because you ask not, right? So there's certain things that are before us, even relationships that God wants to bless us with, but because of walls or pride. That's a huge
pride was huge for me.
Yes,
it was so huge.
Pride, it stops us from getting what God has placed in front of us. Remember, he doesn't place it in our hands, he places it in our reach.
So like I remember you bringing up the whole thing with the rent, and I was about to lose my apartment.
She was about to be homeless.
Yes, I really was. I waited till the last minute. I'd run out of all of my savings. I'd spent everything and ticket on the door. Like it's pretty much a wrap. And I remember being home that day, just asking the Lord, like, I need your help. Like, I need help. And he was like, call Nadine. And I was like, for what? Look at that. These are my conversations with the Lord. I was like, for what? He was like, tell her what's going on. So I'm not calling her to tell her what's going on. Was she gonna help me? And I just felt it within me, like, yes, she would. And I was like, I don't ask for help. Yeah. I take care of myself. I figure it out on my own. I'll find a way.
And you had been living like that for a long time.
Years and years of, just a struggle of living life. I just make my own way. My mom left quite some time ago, like 2006, I believe, and moved back to England. So I was here on my own for quite a long time. And just, some situations just required me to just figure it out, especially with living as an illegal immigrant for some time, going through some immigration issues, trying to make it happen, but there was just the doors and that really started with having the wrong type of lawyer in the beginning that just started a whole path of craziness for me, where I just made really bad decisions to survive. So I got into this thing of I do whatever it takes to keep a roof over my head, to eat, or whatever the case may be.
You were in survival mode
all the time. With this particular time, there was, I guess you would call it a conviction, and at the time I wouldn't know that. A conviction of not to go and resort to the things that I used to do, whether it's sugar daddy or this and that, or all kinds of different things, to come up with the cash to do what I need to do. That just wasn't an option. It just wasn't an option.
Because you were growing in your faith at that time.
Yeah, I was baby, but there was just this thing of, nah, that's not what the Lord, I can't do that. And I struggled all day. So he had spoken to me from the morning to call you. And I think I called you, it was probably going on 11 o'clock at night. And I finally called, but I struggled. It was so hard to call you that day. And even when you called, you were so nice, like, hey, like, how are you doing? And I was like, all right. So even from the way I responded, you knew that something wasn't right. So he was like, what's going on? You're very direct, like, what's going on? And I was like, so then I just spilled it out. Like, I'm just going through this issue. I might lose my apartment. No, I'm going to lose the apartment. I don't have the money to pay for it, blah, 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 blah. Bills, all of this stuff. So I tell you, and then you say, all right, come and see me tomorrow. And I was like, okay. All right, talk to you later. And you hung up. So I remember coming off the phone like, so what does that mean exactly? Gonna get help? I just showing up because I gotta explain everything. Like, I went through a whole thing that night. It was so funny. But when I got into your office and you unpack, you start asking questions, to find out like what have I been doing with my finances? How did I get to this place?
Right.
You're just awesome with that. And I mean, the Lord just used you to help with everything that I needed in that season, and that changed so much for me because I got to see the Lord respond to my need in a way that I haven't experienced, but like Jehovah Jireh, last minute, I'm coming in, I'm gonna save the day. There's no one like me. It was like, oh, there really isn't. So that helped with shifting my heart to start following after the Lord and just, okay, let's check this. I'm gonna start showing up to life group more often. I'm gonna start going to church on Sunday
and not fall asleep.
That was a whole thing, that too. So that was huge. So even in the years have gone by and just the growth spurts and the lack of it at times, what are some difficulties that you've seen in our time of these years of growing in our spiritual relationship? Some difficulties that you've had with raising me up in the faith?
I think because you know,
I know
there's some stubbornness. You know, Ellaina can dig her heel in, and then she covers it with it comes off confidence, but there's a little pride in there, and so when I see that, most of the times I'll back up and she self-corrects and self-aligns, but sometimes I have to speak to it, like, what is that? Where is that coming from? And then she gives these answers. This was then. I wouldn't say this now. So those were the things that, because sometimes as a spiritual mother or a mentor or whatever, it's like, I don't have time for this. Like, come on, like, all right, next. But when you're assigned to something and it's not always going to be a bed of roses, right? You got to work it out with that person. You're in the trenches with them. We're in the trenches with their attitudes. You're in the trenches with their bad character habits, character that needs to be exchanged for the character of Christ. You're in the trenches. You can't just be with them when they're super childlike servant of God, right? No, you're with them. Jesus was with Peter when Peter was out of school, and Jesus had to rebuke him and call him a devil, right? You have the mindset of the devil, right? But Jesus didn't leave Peter. Peter rejected Jesus. He acted like Jesus didn't. He didn't even know Jesus at Jesus's when he stands before, but when he was rejected, whatever. Right? So so Peter rejects him. He rejects any mindset, any thought of him and all of that. Jesus couldn't then say, okay, well, Peter is no longer with me because he rejected me. Denial, right? Denied him. Because he no longer denied me. No, he had to be with Peter in the crunches of Peter's failed behavior, poor behavior, lack of godly character, all of that. And so those who have these relationships with individuals, we cannot abandon them because they get off course, because they got off at the wrong exit spiritually. We cannot say, I can no longer be their spiritual. No, that's when they need the guidance. That's when they need nurturing. That's when they need the care of the spiritual father. That's why I love about the prodigal son, that the father's heart was still with the son. Even after the son said, you know what the son did to the prodigal son? You know what the most difficult part of that story is for me? When the prodigal is asking for his inheritance, you know what the prodigal is saying? You're taking too long to die. Give it to me now. You're not dead yet? Oh, yeah, you're taking too long. Do you know how insulting that is? I'd rather it now because I can't wait. Your death is taking too long. And the father, after he takes his inheritance, squanders it, the Bible says that he was looking out for him. So picture a balcony, right? Because this was a wealthy man. And he's looking over the balcony day after day, week after day, month after month, year after year. I need my son. He gives him room. You got to give him space. But I'm always looking after my son. Where is my son? When is he never gave up. on his son, to the point that this dignified man, when he saw his son, the Bible says from afar off, dignified men, especially Jewish men, they don't run. The scripture says that he tucked his garment between his legs and he ran after his son. It shows such humility of the father. That's the love. That's the kind of love that we ought to have for spiritual sons and daughters. We're not, stiff arming them or abandoning them when they have lost their way. And I think the poor side of that is that we've seen a lot of that in the church, is that when the spiritual son and daughter go back to their old ways, they're banned. I agree that you got to give them room. You got to give them room to come to themselves, but you're always there for them. And you're always there to put your arms around them and guide them back into the safe place of the plans and purposes that God has for them.
Yeah, that's good. I even remember from the side of, being the daughter, with my creative ideas and, things that come to me. And I used to be in events for a time, and I just remember having these, I'm like, okay, we could do conferences and we can put stuff together for Christians and stuff like that. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start it. I didn't pray about it. I didn't do that. I just started. So I started meeting with people, like, we can do this, we can do that. And I remember telling you one day, he was like, so where did you get that from? I was like, it's an idea. The ideas come from the Lord. And he was like, I think you need to check on that one, because I don't believe that's where you're supposed to be going. Like, it was, very straightforward, very get your life together. This ain't it. And I remember leaving that conversation so offended. Like, I was trying to shut down my ideas. She don't want me to be great. I was having a whole moment. I went home and I was like, she really don't want me to be great. This would be great. And I was like, we're gonna do it. And by the next day, I was like, I can't do it. She's gonna come for my neck. But I remember being in my feelings, probably for like a week, in my feelings with it. And I'm sure you knew, but like you say, you give room. And the Lord, once you get over yourself, checked me on it and was, fix that. Fix that. She's in your life for a reason, to help you walk the path that I have for you. So this little thing that you have, as much as you might say that you've let it go, which is great, but go and ask for forgiveness. That was a humbling moment, because it was weird. It was just like, but she doesn't know. You know what I mean? So this is between us, like, I'm gonna let it go. And he's like, no, I need you to go and lay it down before her. And I was like, oh, this is so awkward.
Because God was teaching you a moment. He was teaching you the heart of forgiveness is you can ask for forgiveness, but there's a process of forgiveness, right? And so he was actually teaching you the principle of how to work out forgiveness. It's not just, okay, God, is between you and I. If it was only there, then it can stay there. But if I was rebelling in my heart towards somebody that God had placed in my life, then I owe it to that person to get to realign my heart. And part of that realignment is said, hey, I was off on this, and let me just walk you through, that misalignment that I had. And I just want to come before you now and just say, you know what, please forgive me, because and of course I already knew what was going on there, but you give room for that. And then you gotta have those, okay, where did that come from? Have those conversations at that time. So it's a why God wanted you to also come and talk to me, because it was a teachable moment.
Absolutely.
So Ellaina wouldn't have heard the lesson of that had she not come to me and have that conversation.
And two, instilling honor, understanding the honor piece, because I didn't really understand the spiritual sons and daughters stuff back then. It was just more of, I knew that the Lord put you in my life, and I needed to honor that relationship. I needed to honor the relationship. Friends and family, we have to end here, but we're so glad that you joined us. We'll have more stories for you next week. Make sure to like this video, ring the bell, subscribe, and comment below if there was anything in this video that reached out to you, touched you, informed you on something. Please share it with us below. Or even if you have questions, put it below and we'll be sure to respond. Now go out and rule and reign in all the things that God has called you to do. God bless. See you next week.